Okay, we're here, we're live yet again with our Aquatics Enthusiast,
Yay!
Thomas, our video host.
Yeah, I'm that as well.
Equally as important to me.
Fair enough.
Yeah. He's here yet again to answer all your questions, or as many as he can. I'm here to join him for moral support.
Because I need it.
Yeah.
do.
Don't we all, though?
I'm telling you, doing live Q&As with somebody beside you like this is a lot more fun than being the only person on camera.
Yeah, I think our original plan was just to have you kind of here by yourself and answering questions, but that seemed awfully lonely.
Yeah, I'd have like a stool with a stuffed animal beside me. Just being like, what do you think?
The stuffed animal will probably be just as good at this job than me,
I don't
but
think
I'm here
so.
for you anyway. So how you doing, man?
Good. Rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
Getting excited for builds that are coming and for finishing up builds that are taking way too long for reasons that are completely legitimate.
The low-tech planet tank one?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a couple of people say that it's moving at a snail's pace, and you're not wrong.
Yeah.
It definitely is. But there's certain circumstances beyond our control, some within. But we are we are working hard on that, and we're shooting the next episode this week.
Yeah.
So that should be out to you guys pretty quickly, which is good. Also, we've had a few people comment on these live streams about another one here. Broken Texan says, "Get a background." Geez Louise. Totally. This technically actually is a background, by the way.
Can I just tilt the camera for
Let's see if we can. There we go. Yeah,
there,
see that? That is a legit background. We roll it down. It's a background. The only problem is it's a very boring one. So our plan is, the problem is that Thomas's house has all the aquariums. It's a very nice looking place. But the internet, because you're out in the boonies, it's terrible.
It's not good.
so we come to my house to do the streams because I live within civilization and I have an internet connection, but I don't have any aquariums yet. So the plan is we're going to get a few aquariums. My plan is I think I'm going to set them up behind us here so people get some kind of atmosphere, not just looks like we're in like...
So there's an actual theme.
Yeah, so it looks like we're just
visual theme other than just...
People think we're just in purgatory. So anyway, we will be getting background soon. But yeah, with all that said, I guess enough chit chat. Let's get to the questions.
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, cool.
What do you guys got for me today?
Let's see. First up, hey guys, I was wondering if I could get some information on gouramis. If I can keep a powder blue and a red rainbow dwarf, tank mates, things like that, because I want them to be my centerpiece fish.
Gouramis can definitely be tank mates together. I would say you're probably best off with an actual pair, so a male and a female, or with multiple. So I would say anywhere from three is a low number. I would probably say 5-ish or more to disperse any potential aggression that they might have towards each other. I mean, they're not super terrible for aggression or anything like that, but in my experience with keeping gouramis, anytime that I've seen or personally just kept a pair or 3, and they weren't an actual bonded pair or cared about each other in any way, shape, or form, that they didn't appreciate each other's company very much. So that being said, I think they're one of those fish that are probably going to do better in small groups or by themselves for that reason. But in all honesty, my experience with gouramis is fairly limited. I have kept dwarf gouramis of no particular variety, just sunset dwarf gouramis. And pearl gouramis, which I love. They're really pretty. And I had the best success in keeping them in groups. So yeah, that's my suggestion. Groups.
Awesome. Next question is severums. How many in a 300 liter? I did the conversion. No, that's not right. It says 1135. Hold on. 300 liter. Oh, 79.
You got it backwards.
Yes, I did. 79 gallon tank.
80. You could do full grown. I would say two, like a pair or 3 at most. They get pretty big. Severums can get big. So I'm thinking full grown severums, 80 gallon tank, 3 is going to be pretty much your limit. Make sure you have good filtration and stuff too. They are a cichlid. They do eat a lot and poop a lot.
Great. Next up, red-eye tetras in proper school of 8, being nippy to my angelfish, have bit 2/3 of angelfishes, both ventral fins. What to do to reduce nipping and healing fins without medicine?
Any sort of slime coat additive or water conditioner with a slime coat additive that you can put in the tank will aid in preventing secondary infection to a point. Melifix, I've always been a fan of. It's not a true medication like most would think. It's kind of what I would consider like a step before medication. It's more of like a holistic approach, I guess, or like a natural approach. It's probably a better way to say it. And that'll help, again, prevent secondary infection and therefore allow the fins to grow back. I'm surprised they're being that nippy. The only thing I can really suggest is getting some other fish in there as dither fish to hopefully give those tetras something else to pay attention to than just the angels. And they'd have to be something fast like Danio so that the tetras don't run them down essentially and catch up with them. Angels, because they're more of a static fish, they don't spend a lot of time really swimming around. If they're sitting in a nicely planted tank or a tank with a lot of hardscape where they're going to be comfy, they usually find their happy place and stay within the aquarium. They don't move around a ton except for feeding and stuff like that. So that's probably why they're getting singled out at the moment. But worst case scenario, if you can't get them to stop, because fish will be fish and they have dispositions and attitudes. You're not going to be able to, they're not really trainable like a dog or a cat or something like that. You're going to have to pick one or the other. So either get rid of the tetras, pick something else, maybe like rummy nose tetras, which I've never seen fin nip, or neon tetras, or black neon tetras, or sub out the angels for a different large showfish that the tetras are going to have a harder time keeping up with, maybe like Bosemani rainbows or another large rainbow fish species.
If you could have just one fish for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
One fish for the rest of my life. Honestly, it would probably have to be a blue-based blood red Asian arowana.
And why?
They've always from when I got into the aquatics industry, so when I was about 16 years old, and I started working for Big Al's, the fish that I was most mesmerized by was the arowana. I saw silvers first, but then I saw all the Asians as well, and I started doing research on them and looking into them and found various Asian websites that were breeding facilities constantly posting pictures of these things, and I was just in love with them. They look ancient. They've got huge scales. They do look very dragon-esque. They're wicked cool predators, and they've kind of just become like the symbolic fish of aquarium keeping for me. So I've actually got one tattooed on my back, which it just feels like the fitting thing that a blue base blood red arowana, Asian arowana, would be it.
Good answer. If you tattooed it on yourself, I guess that kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah. Like I said,
you technically have that fish for the rest of your life.
Exactly, on my back. And it's a lot cheaper to get the tattoo than it is to get the fish, believe it or not. And the tattoo can't die unless I go with it.
How many times a day should fish be fed?
It depends on the fish. On average, most tropical aquariums, community tanks, you're going to want to feed anywhere from 1 to 3 times a day at most. And you're looking to feed a small amount of food at a time. So basically put in small amounts and let the fish continuously eat for about 3 minutes. That way you don't have any food sinking to the bottom. Unless you have bottom feeders, you can intentionally put food that'll go to the bottom for them. And that's the general rule. So you feed for 3 minutes and just what they'll eat in that 3-minute time to reduce waste. You can do that twice a day. You could do it up to 3 times a day. But then there are fish like Anthias in saltwater which need to eat constantly all day long, small amounts, because they are high energy fish, super high metabolisms, constantly need to eat. So it really depends on the fish, but in general, most people would suggest once to twice a day for whatever they'll eat in a 3-minute time span, and you just stand there and feed them.
Cool. Hey Thomas, I need a good idea for a 340 liter, which is 90 gallon. I looked it up previously. For a 340 liter tank, kid friendly, and something that will grab my 4-year-old's attention.
Oh, there's all kinds of stuff. So if you want something really kind of interesting and funny looking and interactive, I would say parrotfish. Freshwater parrotfish, which are a cichlid hybrid of sorts, essentially. They're a really cool fish. You can get a few of them. They're interactive. They look funny. And they're relatively easy to keep. The downside is they're a cichlid, they're large, they'll poop a lot, but I think that would be an excellent fish just for children to kind of look up at. They're super brightly colored, like a bright red or a bright orange, and like I said, they're interactive. So once they realize you're the ones feeding them, whenever you guys get close to the tank, they'll swim right up to you. If you're walking by, they'll swim past they're fun. But lots of large cichlids are like that. I think parrots for kids are quite striking and a lot of fun. So I'm going to give you that one example. Again, what I always say when it comes to picking fish, go to the store, show your kids different fish, have one of the people that you have at the store working there, have them come around with you and be like, okay, this is what I'm doing. It's for my kids. Let's show the kids, because kids being able to choose their own fish, it is so much fun. My daughter's 3 and she loves the fish store. So, take them, have somebody go with you and let them choose what they want to put in the tank. And having that expert there with you to, steer you in the right direction will make sure that you guys don't pick something that's not going to work for you. But that's my suggestion. Get the kids involved as much as you can, because it's a really cool experience for them.
Absolutely. Next question. Before I get into that, I just want to say, guys, it looks like we have, 60 people watching right now. It would really help us out. You guys give us a like, smash that like button if you can. It will definitely help us out while we're live for the next hour. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your dentist, share it with your pet dog. Let everyone know we're doing this and have them join in with us, because it would be a lot of fun. With that said, we'll move on to the next question. Hi, I'm putting 1 figure, 8 puffer, 3 monos, and 2 bumblebee gobies in a 55-gallon long. All the research I've done, this is kind of a long one, so bear with me. All the research I've done says I need a salinity of 1.005 up to 1.010 for the brackish setup. I've also found that for a proper setup, you should have lots of caves and plants. In a brackish tank, I know there are some plants that can survive but not thrive. Is there anything I can do to get plants to thrive without using an expensive CO2 setup? Would Seachem Excel Flourish work? Also, any suggestions for my stocking plan?
Here's the thing. Plants don't like salt. So I think having a planted planted brackish tank is extremely difficult to do well. So, and that's what essentially we're getting at here, right? Planted brackish?
Yes.
Okay, so if you want to do a brackish tank and also have plants, I would highly recommend going with mangroves. Now, the kind of double-edged sword here is that mangroves do well in brackish tanks. However, they grow so slowly, it's crazy. And the other problem is all the foliage of the plant will be outside of the water, which can and cannot be a problem. It's a huge benefit in the sense that they're going to use atmospheric CO2 rather than CO2 in the water in order to grow and thrive and do their thing. But if you're looking for the inside of the aquarium to be full of leaves or just full of structure, it takes a very long time for them to grow new roots and start growing aerial roots, which means it'll be probably the better part of 2 to 3 years before the inside of the aquarium is starting to look like a really cool mangrove scene. There are ways to get around that. One of them is to just buy mature mangroves. For me and where I live in Canada, it is very, very difficult to find mature mangroves. You don't often see mangroves at your garden centers or anything like that. You can just get them through fish stores, and they often only come in as pods, which makes it very difficult to kind of work with them, and it makes it more of a long-term project. But you really want to stick to plants that are going to be able to tolerate salt, and not many plants can. So I've never attempted a planted brackish tank. I'd be curious if maybe some macroalgae from the saltwater end of things would survive in a brackish setup with the salinity that low. I think it would warrant some extra research. You're going to have to do a lot of research. That's, like I said, that's not even something I've really delved into, and I haven't really heard of anybody who has. Not to say it hasn't happened, it's just not something that's prevalent. So maybe you should pioneer the way if nobody else has done it yet.
Let us know how that works.
Yeah.
What's the smallest tank I can put a yellow tang in?
Oh man, what a moral conundrum. In my honest opinion, I probably wouldn't keep tangs in anything smaller than about 100 gallons. Dimension of the aquarium comes into play, but I wouldn't even put a yellow tang in a 100-gallon tank. I would be sticking with species of tang that are going to stay quite small. Coal tangs, anything from the bristle-tooth tang kind of family is going to be similar. Tamini tangs, I think, are similar. They don't get much past 4.5 to 6 inches, which for a tang is very small. Yellow tangs, I'd probably want to put in something 150 or bigger. They also like to school, so usually you'd want multiple yellow tangs or just multiple tangs that they can kind of hang out with. So at that rate, you're getting into 250 gallons and up to support that many fish. But again, this is a moral issue because there are people that will take baby yellow tanks and stick them in a 55-gallon tank. And some people think that's okay and other people don't. I think for the sake of the fish and having the ability to thrive throughout its entire life cycle, it's really important. And for the full length of its expected life, you provide the right size aquarium so it can grow from baby to adult, or just get an adult to start with, but from baby to adult as fast as possible, no restrictions due to tank size and stuff like that. And they'll live their best life. They're not hard fish to keep. They just need a lot of space. They are swimmers.
All right, this next one, not really a question, but I thought we'd acknowledge it. I'm new to aquarium fish. I have 9 zebra danios in a 29-gallon tank. It's a starter kit that includes everything plus a fixed heater.
That's awesome. You could put more fish in that tank if you'd like. Quite a bit more. Here's some just fun suggestions since you're newer. Mollies. They do like a bit of salt, but you can do mollies, platies, swordtails, guppies, endlers. Live bears are super easy to care for. They're tons of fun. If you want to watch your fish breed and kind of watch the whole natural life cycle from baby to adult and have it go in circles, they are a lot of fun. All of them. So I would give some of those a shot. And if you want something catfish-wise, Ancestris plecos are one of my favorite. They're bushy nose plecos. Bushy nose will only grow to, at most, about 6 inches, depending if it's male or female. The other ones will stay smaller. But they're very easy to care for. They will do a little bit of algae cleanup for you as well. And they're just cool. You can get them long fin. You can get them albino. You can get them blonde with blue eyes.
Ooh.
Yeah. Have some fun with it and send us pictures.
Yeah. Speaking of which, for those of you who don't know, we do have a React series. You guys send us your photos, and we have Thomas react to them, thus the title React series. So I'm going to throw my email in there that you can send them right to me. I'll show them to Thomas, and we all have lots of fun. So I'll put that in the chat section in a minute. I'm going to go turn off my furnace because that got really noisy, so I'm going to turn that off. But in the meantime, while I do that, Thomas, someone wants to know, and this is again a question about your opinion on what fish they should get, but let's see what you have to say. What big fish would you recommend as a centerpiece fish in a community tank where the smallest fish is 5 centimeters in a 146-gallon tank? Answer away.
146 gallons. Okay, so there's lots of options. If you want something really shiny and that's probably gonna stand out a lot from the rest of the fish in the tank, depending. Like if you have a lot of colorful fish, something really cool and shiny would be a bala shark. They're a pretty large silver colored flashy fish. They've got some black barring on the fins. Really simple, very easy to care for, and they will definitely stand out from the rest of the fish in the tank, unless for some reason all your fish are silver. Another cool option would be rainbows. They're not going to get massively larger than your smallest fish. I mean, good-sized rainbows will probably be up to about 5 or 6 inches. But they are super colorful. They school. They have small mouths, so they won't pick on any small fish in the tank. Lots of fun, not a massive bioload, and just gorgeous. And there's lots of different colors to choose from, so you could have like a whole smorgasbord of different rainbows if you wanted to. So those are 2 really cool options that I would say, yeah, I like them. Bala sharks too. Bala sharks I think are underrated. I think people overlook them often because at the store you usually find them small as babies, and they're just a silver and black fish. But they have all kinds of presence in the tank. They're active, they're fun, they get shiny as a mirror, they're wicked.
I missed most of that answer, but I'm sure it was exceptional.
It was awesome.
Next, can I keep 2 or 4 dwarf gouramis with some neon tetras and 2 angelfish in a 45-gallon tank with good filtration and hiding places?
That's not a ton of space, and the angelfish might not like it. I don't know. I think that you're just right on the line of that possibly ending not well. Angelfish can be very territorial, usually with each other. And if your angelfish are a pair and ever start breeding in that 45, they will not like having gouramis around. They'll probably be a little bit less annoyed with the smaller fish, but they might not like having the gouramis in there, and that'll make them targets. So you'd have to have a lot of plants or hardscape in there for them to stay away. It's not an optimal situation. That's what I'll say. Not optimal. I would try to think of an alternative you could put in there with the angels. But in a 45, honestly, if those angels start breeding, they're not going to be happy about anybody else in there. I would stick to other small schooling fish, if I'm being honest. Just other, maybe even if you want to try something a little bit different, although 45 is not massive, like Congo tetras. They get a decent size. They can definitely stay away from the angels, but they're going to get probably a little bigger than you want. You could try emperor tetras, but they're a little bit fragile. I don't know. I say it like that all the time on purpose.
All the time he does.
Fragile. But they're a little bit more fragile, so they can be a little bit more difficult to work with. But they're also a really nice, slightly larger fish. Interesting pattern. They'll be different from the other tetras. They'll gain some more size, but shouldn't make the angels uncomfy, so to speak. Mind you, like I said, once those things, if they start breeding, they can get pretty protective of their space. So,
alrighty, I saw your piece on a 3D background. I think for the mega build, the background that you had, it was impressive. So I ordered one from Nature Decor, very similar to Aqua Decor. Even the logo looks similar. Do you have any feedback on the company and products?
I have never seen Nature Decor, so I can't say. But now that you have mentioned it, I will look into it.
But those 3D backgrounds from Aqua Decor, like
they
the one you
are crazy cool.
Yeah.
The hardest part about getting that background was picking that background. Like, their website has an astronomical amount of designs on it. A lot of their stuff is hand carved, so you can kind of give them an idea of what you want, and they'll interpret that in their own way into rock structures to go inside the tank. You could have it cover 3 sides of the tank. You could have it cover 3 sides and the bottom of the tank, so it's completely like a rock cavern or structure, and your fish are in that. They also have what I used, which was a low profile background, which are not hand carved, but they're hand painted. I say painted, but they use a pigmented rubber, so it never comes off, which is incredible. Because there's nothing worse than buying an expensive background, sticking in the tank, and then cleaning it and watching the paint fly away. Yeah. So, and they're flexible and easy to get in and out of the tank. But no, they have a crazy amount of color options and textures, and it's just mind-boggling. So if you ever have like an idea in your head and you're not sure how to make it work, especially with real stone, their stuff looks the part. It looks real. It doesn't weigh a ton, and they can do all kinds of custom. So yeah, I highly recommend. Boyan and the crew over there are phenomenal.
Really, really cool looking work. Even out of the tank. I remember when you first got it, I came over to shoot the Mega Build episode, and it was sitting there in front of the tank, and just I could get like up close to it and look, and the detail was nuts.
It's off the chain.
Yeah,
it looks real. That's the killer part.
Yeah.
It doesn't look fake.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And I've compared it like myself to other backgrounds, just like your plain foam backgrounds that are like $10 or $15, like the cheap ones, and also with the hard resin backgrounds that you can get from various companies. And there's almost no comparison, like in terms of fine detail.
Right.
Like they'll all look decent from a distance, with the foam background probably being the least. But I mean, they cost nothing. Yeah. Let's face it, those backgrounds are really cheap. But yeah, no, when you get up close, there is nothing that I've seen that's come even close to that Aqua Decor background.
Really impressive. How often should I clean the filter, and can I clean the filter the day after you clean the tank, or how long should I wait?
How often should you clean the filter? I think I actually answered this in the top 10 video we did.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Top 10 things you do not want to do. So in general, I always recommend you clean the filter as often as the manufacturer recommends, as a minimum. So depending on how dirty your aquarium is, and you'll get to know by watching your filter and seeing if the flow is being reduced because it's getting bogged up with stuff. But you want to keep it as clean as it has to be kept in order for the flow not to be reduced dramatically, because then the filter is not doing its job nearly as efficiently. You also want to make sure that you're not suffocating the biological media inside of the filter, which means you don't want a whole bunch of gunk from the tank sitting on top of that media, making it difficult for water to pass through it effectively and for the bacteria to do their job because they're not getting enough oxygen. So for a lot of tanks, that's going to be once a month. For some tanks, depending on if you have a canister filter and a low bioload, it could be up to 3 months. But whenever you open up a filter, I also highly recommend, whether it's every month, every 3 weeks, every 3 months, depending on when you're going into it. But every time you go into it, clean the impeller well, clean the impeller shafts, clean the O-rings and where they sit, and reapply a hydrating silicone spray or silicone lubricant to those O-rings so they don't shrink. This is more necessary if you have canister filters. As a part of filter maintenance, just always do that, and your filter will last a heck of a lot longer for you. In terms of how, if you should do it during a water change and how long after you should wait, I never do it the same day I'm doing any other piece of maintenance on the tank that could disrupt your biological. So when you do a water change, when you add new water or do anything like that to the tank, you can potentially, whether it's through temperature or pH or anything else, you can change or disrupt the chemistry of the aquarium, and that can affect the biological filter or every surface in your tank, gravel, fake plants, decorations, all those surfaces, the glass, will have some amount of beneficial bacteria on it just by nature. Your filter is going to have a lot more of it just because it's specifically facilitating a spot for that bacteria to grow with a media that's tailor-made to make that bacteria want to colonize it. But when you do water changes and you gravel wash and you siphon, you do all that stuff, you can hurt the bacteria. So I do recommend waiting at least 2 or 3 days between doing the water change and cleaning the filter so that you don't accidentally disrupt the bacteria on both. The last thing you want to do is take bacteria away from your tank in any way, shape, or form, and also your filter, because what you can cause is a cycle within the aquarium again. So if you use tap water, which you should never do, to clean your biological media in your filter, the chlorine is likely to kill that bacteria and send you into another cycle, which can be super dangerous. So always use always use dechlorinated tap water or RO water or whatever you want to clean your biomedia, and give it at least a few days between doing a water change and cleaning the filter. And I know there are a lot of people out there who will do them both on the same day, and you can do it. But if you mess something up, you're running a higher risk than if you just separate them. So I'm all about redundancies, which if you've watched the Mega Build, you will know I will put 2 of everything on everything. So I like to separate it just to keep things safe. It adds a layer of safety. It's just a precaution. Not 100% necessary, but a lot safer, in my opinion and my experience, especially with people who are newer to the hobby.
Better safe than sorry.
Always. The lives of fish are at stake, and sometimes plants, and also sometimes corals, and also invertebrates.
Next up, how can you, this is actually kind of a neat one, I don't think we've gotten this before, how can you determine the actual size of your tank? The man I bought it from and the website he gave me said 70 liter. My calculations say 55 liter, and when I do water changes, 1/3 of the water is supposedly 11 liters.
Awesome. So there's a few things going on. One, if you have an all-in-one aquarium, let's just say, and the filter's built into the back of the tank, the total water volume of the tank will usually include that filter. So that, if that's the kind of style aquarium it is, that might be why it's a 70 liter. It could be 55 liters in the front display plus 15 liters for the filter, let's just say. Mm-hmm. So that is one way he could be so far off. The other thing is there is a difference in volume between the outside dimensions of the tank and the inside dimensions of the tank. So if you calculate the exterior dimensions, you're not calculating correctly because the inside of the aquarium will be smaller. Usually depending on the thickness of the glass, it could be 1/4 inch on 2 sides and the bottom. So you could have, a pretty substantial difference in the actual volume of the tank if you've got 1/4 inch of space all around the aquarium that is being calculated as water when it's actually glass. So that might be why you've got 55 liters. I mean, there's a big difference between 33 liters and 55 liters.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you're calculating the 11 liters, because if you're using a 5-gallon pail, unless it's graduated and you can actually see exactly where everything is, you're just guessing. And I think most 5-gallon pails are 5-gallon total volume all the way to the top, which nobody's going to fill it that high up, because you will spill it when you move it. So I'm not sure. In terms of how you can calculate it, there are lots of calculators out there on the internet. I do not remember the actual equation off the top of my head, because it's just not something I use on a daily basis. And I always cheat and use a calculator. But you could Google aquarium volume calculator. Tons of stuff comes up. Use the inside dimensions of the aquarium, not the outside dimensions. And if you want display volume, make sure if you have a filter built into the back of the tank, you only do the display side of the aquarium. Nailed it.
Nice work. Very impressive to watch. All right, so with that said, we're at the halfway mark, which means it's time for a brand new segment.
Yay!
A brand new segment I like to call, What Did Brian Learn This Week? Okay, so this segment, I got the idea because I'm not an aquarist like you. I'm a video guy, but in doing my job, editing the videos, and just working around a lot of aquatics enthusiasts, I come across a lot of really cool information that, as someone who isn't involved in the hobby on a regular basis, I find super interesting. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to share something I read. I only read it yesterday,
Nice.
so I haven't memorized everything. I'm going to try and give you all the base information that I remember from it.
Paraphrase.
Yes, I'm going to paraphrase as best as possible. But what I learned this week, I learned about a fish called the blue streak cleaner wrasse.
Nice.
Have you heard about this fish?
Yes.
Okay, so from what I learned about this fish, you can probably correct me if I'm wrong with any of it, but I read it off a very cool website. So this fish, it's a very slender fish. It's got like blue and yellow like spackling on the side of it, and then one big black stripe down it. And I guess it's like really prominent in down in Australia, like the Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah.
They find them a lot.
There's a Hawaii version too that you
very
got to
cool.
look up later.
All right, very cool. I will. So I found two particular things very interesting about this fish. But first, a little background on the fish for anyone who doesn't know what it is. And this is me paraphrasing. He knows more about this than I do, obviously.
This is fun for me.
This
Keep
is
going.
what I learned. So what I learned is that this fish, it's a cleaner fish, so it has a very symbiotic relationship with all the other fish in the reef. So what will happen is other fish that live in this little community will, when they see the design on it, they see the colors, they know what this fish is, and they essentially strike some kind of pose, like a, hey, clean me now.
They do,
do
yeah.
your thing. So this fish will go along the all around the fish, into the mouth, removing parasites, skin detritus, which I had to Google to make sure I was getting right. Eating all like the dead skin cells, all that kind of stuff. So it's symbiotic in that the fish around the community, they get cleaned, and the actual blue streak wrasse gets a meal. You still with me?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
You're nailing it so far. Keep going.
No, that's all super cool. What I really thought was interesting, though, was this fish's the social aspect, the dynamic that this fish actually has. So I read that what will happen is, let's say the fish that it's cleaning, we'll call him like the client. He's cleaning his client, picking parasites, skin detritus, all that. If the fish isn't looking, like if the fish is just do while it's getting cleaned, the wrasse will sometimes like take a little nibble out of like the mucous membrane like on the skin. And I guess if the other fish isn't looking, they don't really notice. But if the fish is looking, it's like if you're out for a manicure and like you look down and they're chewing on your finger, you're going to be like, hey, what's going on here, right?
Yeah.
The wrasse, what it'll do is it'll try and it'll be like, no, it's cool, bro, it's cool, don't worry. And it'll like give the other fish like a little like complimentary massage on the fin or something. It said a massage. I was like, I don't know how that works. But the social skills are there that it gets like, it wants to try and make the situation, it wants to keep its reputation.
No, it's all right. Look, everything's cool.
Bro, don't worry, we're cool. We're besties still. Which I thought was really neat. And if the fish are looking, the wrasse won't take a bite because it wants to maintain its
rapport
and reputation. It wants to be known as a good cleaner fish. I thought that was the social aspect of that, like trying to no, bro, don't worry about it. I thought that was really neat for a fish. The really cool part that I read is that if this fish is removed from the environment doesn't quite collapse, but this fish is absolutely crucial. In Australia, they did this study. Every 3 months, they removed all the cleaner fish from a certain reef. every 3 months and move them to a different reef. And they'd study the reef and see what happened. And what happened is half of the species in that reef would disappear. And then the species that were left, 3/4 of them would disappear. So it drastically reduced it. So they said these cleaner fish are absolutely crucial for the health of these reefs. The next really cool part is that the cleaner fish is actually crucial, and it raises the intelligence level of all the other fish that it cleans. How does it do that? I was like, that's what? How does it do that? So they tested these damselfish, I guess. They took damselfish, ones that had cleaner fish in their habitat, ones from the habitat where they were removed. And they did food tests. They put food in the tank, some kind of like visual test. Okay, which one are you going to go for? The damselfish that had cleaner wrasse in their environment were much quicker and on many more occasions able to accomplish the test. The damselfish that didn't have cleaner wrasse around failed miserably. And they chalked it up to this. The fish that didn't have the cleaner wrasse around were dirty to a point where it was distracting for them. So they couldn't focus. It's like you never being able to shower and me being able to shower. Like your teeth get gross and you're all stinky and that starts to, lead to you not being able to concentrate. You're getting upset. So I thought that was super cool. Like the importance that this wrasse has on an entire ecosystem. I thought that was kind of neat.
Okay, so you did paraphrase very well.
Thank you.
Cleaner wrasses are incredibly cool, and they are insanely important. And you're right that if cleaner wrasse disappear from a specific section of reef, that a lot of fish will stop showing up there because it is no longer the known cleaning station that it's supposed to be. And something I've always found super fascinating about the cleaner wrasse is that they will even clean the gills and inside the mouth of large predator fish who decide that they're not going to eat them because they serve a function like that, which is incredible to see, like a big grouper that is responsible for devouring other fish and this tiny little wrasse just jumping around inside of his mouth, cleaning his teeth, pulling out parasites, doing their thing. So yeah, they're really, really cool. And they're in Australia, I believe they are blue and white with a black stripe, like you're describing. In Hawaii, they're pink and yellow with a black stripe, which is really neat. And another really cool thing is a lot of fish that live on the reef, they're as babies will look vastly different than they do as adults. So the babies of a whole bunch of different fish, whether it's angelfish, I think there are damselfish that have these colors. There might even be some other fish species, like possibly other species of wrasse. Anyways, long story short, other fish as babies on the reef will adopt the black, white, and blue to mimic cleaner wrasses so that predators don't mess with them.
Smart.
Yeah, they're like, well, nobody's eating this guy. I'll just look like him until I'm big enough to survive. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so a lot of fish will actually mimic cleaner wrasses in order to avoid predation as babies, which is just
super
wild.
Cool.
Yeah,
that kind of blew my mind again as someone who doesn't know a lot about it. When I did read that, it interested me a lot, and I thought it was kind of neat. So I thought I'd just share it and see, who else knew that.
Yeah, no, they are super cool.
Yeah.
Super difficult to keep in captivity, and I don't really recommend it, which is unfortunate. But unless you've got like a giant display tank, like gigantic, with hundreds of fish for them to clean, they just don't do well. So,
but super cool to know they're out there doing their thing.
They're incredibly cool. I love them.
That's what I learned this week. So I figured next week I'll come with another cool fact.
A cool alternative, if you want a cleaner type fish that looks like a cleaner wrasse, like black with a blue stripe type deal, cleaner gobies, or neon gobies as they're sometimes called, they do pretty darn well in captivity. They do well in captivity.
I caught that. I was going to just push on past it.
Poop joke. So anyways, but no, they do great in captivity, and they do look a lot like the cleaner wrasses. They're just way smaller, and they will eat prepared foods. So
nice.
Go that route if you really want a cleaner fish. They're awesome.
Cool. Back to the questions. I have a betta that's a fun biter.
Fin biter.
That makes sense. I was gonna say, that might be a lot of fun.
Fun little biter.
Yeah,
that guy.
how are you? I want to put plants for him. What would be the easiest without using CO2?
Anubias, crypts, jungle valves, Java moss, Java fern, all super easy. I would say probably the easiest of the bunch are going to be the Java Fern, Java Moss, and Anubias. The Anubias, if you get a large variety with larger leaves, even Anubias nana gets pretty decently sized. If the leaves are close to the surface of the water, you may find that your beta will take naps on them, which is also super cool. So I would go Anubias.
Cool. What fish do you recommend to put with 2 silver sharks?
Silver sharks. I'm assuming that's bala sharks. Google that quick. This is the tricky part about common names for fish. There are a lot of fish that have the same common name as other fish. Bala shark. Look at that. What's a shark? What's called a shark and is silver? They're pretty gentle for the size of fish that they are. I think as long as you put other quick moving fish with them, you're pretty much good to go. I would look at barbs, even like tiger barbs, green tiger barbs, gold barbs, rosy barbs. You could even do cherry barbs if you wanted to. Those are all decent tank mates. Danios of all kinds are great tank mates. Larger tetras and rasboras can be a lot of fun. Sky's the limit.
Cool. Upgrading from a 29 live bear community to a 75, keeping the same fish, mollies, platies, guppies, cory, and a pleco. Once the 75 is ready, Bosemani rainbows okay to the mix?
Absolutely. Yep, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to add them in there.
Cool. Low-tech tank, 75 liter. How many plants can I put inside?
That's a trick question. As many as you want. You could literally not see the bottom of the tank because it's covered in plants, and your fish will be just okay with it. They won't care. It's hard to, and very specifically, it's hard to put a number because plants are sold in different sizes. So you can get like an Anubias nana petite, which is a cutting this big, and then you could also get Anubias nana petite medium, which might be this big, and a large, which might be this big. So I can't give you a number because it all depends on how you buy your plants. But just, you could literally fill the tank, side to side, wall to wall, top to bottom plants.
Load up.
Look up you can Google Dutch planted aquarium, Dutch style planted aquarium. They're often like that. And it looks incredible, but they're also often high tech and pretty difficult to maintain. But just to show you, you can just load it up with live plants and everything's cool. Actually, in our Thomas Reacts videos, there's a gentleman who did a dirt bottom tank.
Over like 800 days or
yeah,
something like that.
And that was packed with plants and it looked amazing. Anyways.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. 30 gallons for a low-tech planted Tetra tank. Would it be enough?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Do air pump / air bubbles slow plant growth in a planted tank? Do I on the air pump 24/7 if I already have a hang on the back filter?
So the answer is technically potentially, and no. So potentially it can slow the plant growth down in the sense that the more surface agitation you add to your planted aquarium, the less CO2 is going to be retained in the water. So if you have a lot of surface agitation, any CO2 produced is going to exit very quickly as oxygen from the room is brought into the tank, unless for some reason your CO2 in the room is extremely high, which is not normal. And if you do have an air pump, and many people with plant tanks actually do use an air pump, they'll use it at night when the lights are off and when the CO2 is off. And the reason being, at night, plants don't utilize CO2 the same way they do during the day, so the CO2 level can actually rise back up. So at that point, it becomes more critical to not inject CO2 or add CO2 in any way, shape, or form and increase the amount of surface agitation that you have. So what I would do if I were you is have your air pump turn on about half an hour after your lights turn off, and turn off half an hour before your lights are going to turn back on again. So it'll basically run the entire night, give less an hour, half an hour at the start and finish of your lighting for the aquarium. And that would be perfectly fine.
My albino corridoras laid eggs 2 days ago.
Very cool.
They're in a fry net now. When should I expect them to start hatching?
I have no clue.
Ask them.
Ask them. I'm not sure. I have not bred cories, and I have not looked up how long their egg incubation period is. So I have no idea. Google will probably tell us. but I'm not going to even try to guess because I really have no idea.
Fair enough. Josh, if you have any... Josh is here now, by the way. Josh.
Oh, Josh. Yeah, Josh might be able to answer that.
He's our other aquatics enthusiast. For those of you who've never joined us before, he's our other video host, Aquatics Enthusiast. He's in the chat, also answering questions. So maybe he knows. Josh, if you do, if not, Google it for us and let us know. Thomas, this is just an opinion question. Do you prefer salt or freshwater?
Such a tough one. People ask me that a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to honestly say at this point in my life, it's saltwater, and it has been for the last 10 or 11 years for me. I switched over to saltwater, or started my, I'm not going to say switched over, because I've had freshwater tanks and saltwater tanks for years and years and years, like run simultaneously. So I started keeping saltwater when I was 17 or 18. And ever since then, it's kind of just taken over my brain. I'm obsessed with corals and giant clams, tridacnid species clams. And I love the complexity of reefs, which is probably also why I really like freshwater planted aquariums, because they have similar complexities and in some cases can actually be harder than setting up a reef tank. And then I've also become very fond of planted dart frog vivariums for the very similar reasons as to why I love reefs. So, but no, I think if I ultimately had to pick, like if somebody was like, hey, Thomas, you can only keep fresh or salt, I would say salt. Which, yeah, I would. I love corals. Yep.
How big can swordtails grow? I've heard they can grow to up to 15 centimeters. So would that just be the body or the body and the tail?
I would think that's tip to tail, tip to tip, like all the way across. 15 centimeters. The largest I've ever actually seen is probably nose to tail about 6 inches, maybe 5.5 inches. I don't know what that is in centimeters. I'm not even gonna guess.
I don't know.
They were gigantic. They were literally the biggest swordtails I've ever seen in my life, and I've only seen them once that large. It reminds me of one time one of our store locations brought in adult neon tetras or cardinals, and they were huge. I had never seen, like, the body and the tail was like 2 inches. They were just massive. But every once in a while, you just get gargantuan. And the other thing is, I don't know if all sword species, because there's like different subspecies of swordtails, if they all have the same like size as adults, which I would. They might be similar, but yeah, I don't know. Like, and when I say, like I said, 6 inches would be with the tail, so the body was probably maybe 3 inches, 3.5, somewhere around there. Anyways.
Someone just brought this up, so I thought we'd just quickly touch on it. It
Sure.
has nothing to do with us necessarily. But what do you think about this guy in Toronto who jumped into the shark tank at the Ripley's Aquarium? Did you read about that?
I heard naked, right?
Yeah, naked. He stripped down, butt naked.
Was this like a publicity stunt, or did he?
No, like that.
He was allowed.
No, he did it himself. It wasn't a publicity stunt. It was just him doing it. I don't think he was doing it just for the publicity. I think he might have been drunk. They have like every week at the Ripley's and at the bunch of museums in Toronto, they have like adult nights where you can go and like they serve cocktails and stuff. And I think this guy had a few too many and stripped down and jumped in and then left. And I think they finally found out who he was. I don't know if there's a warrant for his arrest or not, but it was a gutsy, stupid move.
I wouldn't do it. Probably mostly because of the sharks.
I'd say that's at least 90% of my reason.
Something about being exposed in a tank full of things that could bite you would make me feel extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I mean, if that's his jam, like, who am I to say don't jump in a tank naked? I think another probably concern from an aquarist standpoint is that what if he was wearing like a whole bunch of cologne, or I mean that's a massive volume of water, so the chance of poisoning it with one guy's body coverings or lack thereof is slim to none. But you know, that's what I would think, like what the heck did he just contaminate the tank with?
Oh god.
Craziness.
It was kind of nuts. Big story for a
don't do that at home
or at Ripley's Aquarium
or anywhere. Yeah, good point.
Avoid it in general.
Jump in your own shark tank naked.
Build one and put sharks in just to jump in naked. You have other issues. All right, back to the questions. I have a 50-gallon with constant algae bloom. Would you recommend UV?
Is it green water Or is it algae growing on stuff? We actually had a video that I kind of put together on UV sterilizers or clarifiers and what they basically will and won't do. So it's really important to consider that a UV sterilizer will only kill the things that pass through it. So if you have green water, or your water, when you look through the tank, is appearing green, like a cloudy green color, then yes, a UV sterilizer is going to work like this to get rid of it. It's ridiculously fast, and the water will be crystal clear after, provided the algae is the only thing discoloring the water. However, if you've got algae growing all over the surfaces in the aquarium, that's a different problem, because you can't get the algae itself to pass through the UV sterilizer. Therefore, it's not going to kill the algae. In that situation, obviously a UV sterilizer is just a very expensive extra thing on the tank that's not going to be doing a whole heck of a lot for you, other than getting rid of parasites and stuff like that, provided you get a sterilizer strong enough for the flow that you're putting through it and the size aquarium, yada yada. There's a formula you kind of got to follow to determine whether or not it will be a sterilizer on the tank or a clarifier. So long story short, it really depends on what algae you've got in the tank.
Cool. And I've linked that video he was talking about. It's in the chat now, so check that out. Learn a little bit about UV sterilizers, what they do and what they don't. Next question is, I haven't cleaned my tank in like 6 weeks. All the tests are perfect, but should I do water changes anyway, or should I leave it and just keep an eye out for ammonia spikes, etc.?
Two reasons to, well, three, I guess, to do water changes with some regularity. So no, if your water parameters are all checking out and stuff, you don't have to really do an immediate water change. I think a lot of tanks out there can go probably 1 month without actually needing a water change once they've been established. If you have a planted tank, that changes things, because then your plants are also going to be absorbing some of the extra nutrients in the water. But if you don't have plants, this is just a regular aquarium, what I would recommend is that you do a water change at least once a month. And gravel siphon to make sure that any detritus or mulm or waste that is building up in the gravel is removed, so that it cannot ever enter a state where it's putting enough excess nutrients in the tank to cause problems with chemistry. The other thing you need to consider is that through biological processes, and the whole process of ammonia being broken down and respiration and all that, the water actually builds up acid. So you could have a tank that never has high nitrates and high ammonia, but you will see that over time, your pH will start to drop, and it'll get lower and lower and lower as the acid builds up in the aquarium. So that's a reason as well that you'd want to try to do water changes with some amount of frequency to make sure that you don't end up having your pH drop. That takes a while. It's definitely not going to happen overnight. It'd probably take a few months for you to actually start going down far enough that it's going to potentially become problematic. And in some tanks where you have things in the water that will buffer the water, like an African cichlid tank where you've got a whole bunch of calcium carbonate, you may not ever see that drop. But I'm always a big fan of just keeping things tidy. So doing it once a month just to get rid of the mulm on the bottom of the tank can be a good enough reason for me to make sure that, I'm doing those water changes and keeping everything clean, just so you don't ever end up in a spot where you've got a huge mess to deal with.
I have an old aquarium decoration that hasn't been in a tank for a while. How should I clean it before putting it in a new tank? Now, for people like me who are beginners, to clean something and disinfect it, you're looking at, like bleach or Lysol wipes, but that stuff's not necessarily great. You don't want to get that. How do you effectively clean stuff to make sure it's safe?
Bleach can be okay in small amounts, and you have to, when you're done, really rinse off the item. And I often will recommend using a water conditioner like Seachem Prime and putting that in water with the ornament to help get rid of the remaining chlorine bleach that could be on the ornament. The problem with that is if you ever accidentally use a bleach that has any kind of additives with it, like perfumes, that can cause massive issues in the tank. So the safest way to do it is just a soft bristle brush. You don't want to use something hard because you might accidentally take the paint off the ornament too if it has paint. Just a soft bristle brush and soaking in warm water. So sometimes what will happen, you pull an ornament out, you give it a quick rinse and you throw it in a box. There's still all kinds of biofilm that had gotten on the ornament. It's sometimes just small amounts of algae and bits of detritus and stuff that's caked on there. So you want to just soak the ornament in some warm water, lukewarm water, and then take that soft bristle brush and just try to knock all of that junk off. You'll usually see that the water's gone a little bit cloudy after. You'll see that some stuff's coming off of it. But that's all you should really have to do. Give it a quick rinse again after that, and you should be good to put it in the tank. If it was like caked in algae, the bleach method may work better for you. But again, it's a little risky. There are products that will help get rid of things like some amounts of algae, it'll loosen up, and calcium carbonate, or like calcium or lime scale that's built up on pumps or ornaments and stuff like that. Hydro Magic Clean, I believe, is a product that works really well for that. I think it's called Magic Clean. I've used it plenty of times for cleaning pumps and stuff. It works really, really well. So that's another option as well. But again, that I find works most effectively on calcium buildup. So like lime scale.
Cool. Can you recommend any plastic hoods with built-in lighting for a 20-gallon long tank? Or would it just be better to get a glass top with a light fixture? Sorry if this doesn't
It makes perfect sense. Don't worry. Yeah.
They're a beginner.
Yeah. No. So I'm a big fan of glass tops and then choose your own light fixture for a myriad of reasons. Although, if you don't want to get out of hand with price, and price is a concern, that's where these like plastic hood combos, they usually these days either have a plain fluorescent or plain LED fixture. The drawback is they're usually not super bright. They're meant to illuminate the tank and provide a top for the tank. They're not meant to do anything special for you. So if you want to have a little bit more control with how your aquarium looks, I would suggest getting a glass top and then doing some research on lights, find out what you like, and throw light you want on there. There are lots of lighting options. Like, I love aquarium lighting. You can ask Brian.
Yeah.
I really like aquarium lighting. So I would always recommend glass top and then go find what works for you that you like. You don't have to spend a ton of money. There's lots of low budget LEDs and stuff like that you can put on there that'll still be brighter or give you more options than getting an all-in-one hood. But again, if price is the main concern, those plastic aquarium hoods with a light that comes with it, that's like the easiest thing to do.
Your thoughts on seeding a marine aquarium with copepods? I've got a 160-gallon.
I would say do it. There are lots of different brands of live copepods you can order from various places. Tiger Pods, I think, is one brand. Depending on your local area, you may even find local businesses that have their own copepods and stuff like that you can get. I generally recommend getting them in person rather than having them shipped if you can, only so you can see that they're still alive and kicking and doing well in the bottle. And anytime you don't have to ship something, it's less potential error. Like the weather's less likely to affect whether or not they arrive live or dead, yada, yada, yada. So, but yeah, I would highly recommend if you're doing a salt tank or a reef system, seeding with copepods is excellent, especially if you're using dry rock or man-made rock instead of live rock.
If my room is constantly around 23 to 24 degrees Celsius, do I need a heater for my tropical tank?
Probably not. The question is it that temperature all season long?
Is your room that temperature because your house is heated all season long? Or
is that just your local temperature outside? One of the things with aquariums that I think is really important is just consistency. So as long as you're not getting temperature swings, that could be okay. But I'm always a fan of, like, my home is basically the same temperature all the time. I keep it cool, so I definitely need a heater for a lot of the tropical fish I want to keep. But let's say there's a fish that would do really well in the temperature that it is, because we have winter here. If I ever lost power in the winter, or, my heating system just crapped out or something, I would be up the creek without a paddle, and putting those fish at risk. So it's tough. A power outage would just make it really difficult unless I had battery backup, period. But yeah, I think just for consistency's sake, I like having a heater because they'll usually keep your tank within 1 degree, plus or minus. Rather than potentially swinging low in the evenings and high during the day, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, you wouldn't be the first person to run an aquarium without a heater because they have a pretty consistent tropical temperature in the room that the aquarium's in. Depending on what country you're in, lots of people will you know, just to have their tank sitting on their dresser. Yeah. If you live in a tropical temperature area, power to you. Yeah. You don't have to have a heater. You might even need a chiller, depending.
But if there is a chance that the temperature would drop for any reason, it's good to have it on hand, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. 30-gallon tank with deteriorating silicone on 4 sides. Base is good. Can I trim without removing it all? Can I reseal it over it? I bought the Python recently. It's great. It makes water changes enjoyable. Oh, that's cool.
So I would always, if you're ever going to reseal a tank at all, you reseal the entire thing. You don't have to take the panels apart. You just want to make sure that it won't leak. So you want to reseal the inside of the tank. So the way you would do that is you would take all of the silicone from the inside of the aquarium, top to bottom, all of it. Sides, you have to do it all. And then reseal the interior of the aquarium and leave all the panels stuck together. And that should be enough. And you want to use, you know, a pretty liberal amount of silicone. A really quick tip, if you want to keep nice straight lines and you've never sealed a tank before, get some painter's tape and draw where you want those lines to stop with the tape, so you can put the silicone down on all those areas and just peel the tape off, and it'll give you perfectly straight lines.
How does ADA Aquasoil work with RODI water?
I have not used ADA Aquasoil, and RODI water in general, if you're doing a planted tank, I'm sure the Aquasoil has got to be relatively similar to like the Tropica stuff. Based on, I have used similar products, I'll say that. But if you're using RODI water for a planted aquarium, you should use some sort of remineralizing product to put hardness back into the water. Plants don't like RODI water, and fish don't really like RODI water straight. So remineralize the water, then use it, and it doesn't matter.
Cool. In your last video, you weren't a fan of sand as a plant substrate.
I'm not.
In episode 4.
I've done it, but I'm not a fan. So that's how I know I'm not a fan.
What should I be doing to keep them as healthy as I can in sand?
We are fuzzy.
We are fuzzy. Come back, focus. Come back, focus. Hey, bringing it back, bringing it back.
So sand, you can use something like root tabs and tuck them in where the plants are planted in the sand. That'll do a pretty good job at providing extra nutrient and minerals that rooting plants are going to require, you know, down at their level. That's pretty much your best option. That's really it. Like there are products like laterite that are probably still kicking around that you could try to like sprinkle in around the sand, but that's just going to get messy. The nice thing about root tabs is it's like a puck. You just put X number of them around a space and it's one thing. So you might have like 5 or 6 in a tank instead of like hundreds of little pieces of laterite that you're trying to like mix in with the sand. But that's the main concern. You just want to make sure that they're getting something, because right now you're using an inert substrate that will not provide any real benefit to the root system other than an anchor. So that's it. As long as you can get some root tabs in there, that's really the bulk of what you've got to do.
Cool. Let's see here. This one's interesting. How should you store a filter containing bacteria when it's not in the tank? I have a couple I'm not using but want to keep for a later tank.
Continue running them on a tank. The only thing you can do. You need, for the bacteria on the biomedia to continue to live and do its thing, it has to be on an aquarium where it's receiving food and oxygen. So if you just have it even running on a bucket of water over here, eventually that bacteria is going to die because there's no food, right? So you have to provide food and oxygen to that bacteria in order for it to stay alive. So what I would do is just keep running the extra filters on your main system. And if that's going to be too much flow, there's not a whole lot you can do. What you can do at that rate is shut those filters down that you're not using right now, clean them up entirely, and store them. And when it comes time, you can take half the media from your current filter, or a quarter of it even, and use that biomedia in the new filter and put unseeded biomedia back in the other filter. So it's going to have 3/4 of old media full of nice, beautiful bacteria, and then 1/4 of brand new media for that bacteria to colonize. And then you'll have a small portion of bacteria to go in the new filter, to help get it jump started. Another way you could do it is take a mesh bag of biomedia and drop that in your tank about 2 weeks before you're going to set up the new filter. So that way you're not touching your old filter, and you're going to have some bacteria growing on that biomedia inside the aquarium. Tuck it in a dark corner so that you're not, pounding it with light and potentially growing algae and stuff on it too.
Cool. We're now over our 1 hour, so you want to just bang a few out and then wrap it up? Okay, so quickly, I pick plants from my yard for the tank. I rinse them thoroughly before placing them in the tank. Can wild plants pose any problems for our guppies since they are weeds?
I don't know what... I'm confused. You're using terrestrial... Not you can't. Some of the plants we use in aquatics are terrestrial by nature. But so you're using terrestrial plants from your garden in your aquarium aquatically with guppies.
Yeah.
I don't know because I don't know what plants you're talking about.
Fair enough. Could be yes, could be no.
Yeah.
All right, Johnny B, if you're still there, if you're still around, maybe hit us up with some clarification on what plants you're using. We'll try and get it before we log off. We'll move on to the next one for now. How would you set up a 45-gallon breeding tank for freshwater angelfish? Could I breed a bottom feeder or any other fish in the tank with them? Suggestions?
I would probably set up a tank with a lot of hardscape and maybe some easy plants that aren't going to get too mucked about if I'm in there digging around or trying to remove eggs. I'd also probably put, what would I put with angels? Maybe half clay pots sitting vertically or something. Or a breeding cone from cobalt would actually work pretty well. You want something for them to deposit the eggs on, so that I personally would like to remove the eggs once they're there and then hatch them separately and do everything myself to just ensure maximum yield. But could you breed anything else? Yes, and citrus pleco. I'm going to just keep going back. You can breed plecos with angels pretty easily because they're going to be on the bottom, staying away from everything else. As long as you set up the habitat to facilitate those plecos wanting to breed, and they're adults, male and female, you shouldn't have much of an issue. There are so many tanks I've seen where somebody had 2 ancestral plecos, bushy-nosed plecos, and then they had hundreds. And they just out of nowhere, and it's because they breed under like rocks and wood and stuff, and then all of a sudden all the babies come out at once, and you're like, oh! So yeah, you definitely can. You can breed more than one thing with your angels.
Cool. I think Thomas might have the answer. I'm getting a 125-gallon. My friend suggested I get sand. What sand would you recommend that will not spike nitrates? Is Seachem good?
Seachem, if you're using it for planet aquariums, the Seachem fluorite sand is great. If you are using it decoratively, I would say Carib Sea. My favorite is the Carib Sea Sunset Gold because it's got that kind of gold color to it. It's a little bit on the yellow side instead of just a flat white. But they also have all kinds of white sands as well in different grades. So I'm a fan of Carib Sea, personally.
Can I use lava rock in marine tank?
Technically, yes. But it's not going to buffer the pH at all. So I would suggest using something actually designed for a marine aquarium or reef keeping because they're going to be calcium carbonate based and will help buffer the water and provide a more natural substrate for corals to grow on and for all, depending on what you're keeping, but for corals and coralline algae and stuff like that to grow on, and bacteria, etc.
We'll do a couple more. We'll do 3 more. How do I check how much carbon dioxide is going into my planted tank?
You have to use there's a few ways. You could get a CO2 test kit. You could get a drop checker, or you could get a pH monitoring device, like a pH controller to hook up to your CO2 system. And you can determine by either testing with the test kit, checking with the drop checker, which is a quick visual, which is what I usually recommend for people, or with pH, you can actually calculate what the CO2 is based on the pH and yada, yada, yada. Yeah, because pH drops as you pump CO2 in.
What is the best aquarium 200-gallon filter out there, in your opinion?
FX6. Eheim will probably get mad at me for saying that. Oh. I like Eheim a lot too. Love Eheim, but $1 to donuts, is that what they say?
$1 to donuts, yes.
$1 to donuts. I think the FX6 for the price is just a beast of a filter.
By Fluval, yeah?
Yes. I've used it multiple times and I love it. There's also the FX4, but I would probably do a pair of FX6s or maybe like an FX4 and an FX6. I'm crazy like that though. I like having backup filters, especially if I have a whole whackload of money invested and love invested in my fish.
Yeah, I'll just link that for you, Riley Way. I've linked that in the chat so you can learn more about it, see if it's for you. Let's see, while I was doing that, I lost my place. Is it normal for hair grass to change color a couple days after planting? I see a lot of mixed answers.
I'm going to say in general, unless the plants were grown immersed and now you're submersing them, there should not be a huge change in the look of the plants from when you purchase them and add them to your tank. If something changes, it's because there must have been a pretty big difference between the environment they came from and the environment you put them in. So they shouldn't really be changing very much unless they were planted in somebody else's tank, or whatever medium they were in when you took them apart to plant them in your tank, you vastly damaged the root system. If you do a lot of damage to a root system, that can set a plant back. Not usually kill a plant entirely, but if you damage the root system enough, you usually get quite a bit of die-off. So you may lose, 50% of the plant. So you have some green leaves left and a whole bunch of yellowing that's wilted away and dead. But in some cases, you can lose up to 100% of the foliage. And as long as the root system is still intact and has not disintegrated, you can get foliage to come back from that. So even if it does get down that far, don't give up right away. Give it a chance to come back. But the short answer, in my opinion, is no. It should look the same unless something happened to injure the plant.
Cool. Just as a quick follow-up, you mentioned the FX6.
Yes.
Riley did check out the link. He said he's hoping that you might be able to recommend something more affordable for him right at the moment. Is there anything else you could think of that might be...
200-gallon tanks are expensive.
Fair enough.
Yeah. You could do 2 smaller canister filters.
Which ones, if you could, just so I can link them so we can have a look.
I don't know. You could do 2 2217s. That's not going to be a ton extra filtration. Honestly, the FX6 for what it is a phenomenal price. If you can even just use one, you will spend less money. Yeah, it's not even going to be cheaper to use 2 of those.
Slightly, only because you know what, these Eheims.
Oh, because they're currently on sale.
We have them on sale right now. They're usually here. Let's see, 2217. You said?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So usually USD 216. Now it's 160 for an Eheim 2217. So if you pick up 2 of those, you said would be the good option.
Would be okay. You're losing a lot of bells and whistles and a lot of flow difference between that and an FX6, but.
Again, if you're trying to be creative with it, I guess.
Here's my honest opinion. Save up the money you need to get the filter that's going to do the best job. Because if you spend money on something that's not going to work as well, and you plan to stock this tank full of wonderful fish that you're going to put a lot of heart and effort into,
you're just throwing away money.
You're spending money now to replace it later, and it's not fun. And people make that mistake a lot. It's better to wait it out, get the thing that you actually need when you can afford to do it, and go from there. Yeah. I know it always feels like a mad dash to the finish line. Like when you get a big glass box in your tank, you just want to fill it.
Yeah.
You just want to see the fish.
Yeah, but I mean, let's be honest. Black Friday is coming up, so there's going to be all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
So you know what? Yeah, wait till Black Friday. Check out our site on Black Friday. I'm not sure if that one will be on sale or not, but check back with us for Black Friday for all the deals that we'll have, and maybe then you'll see. Oh, okay. You know what? Great sale. I need rather than getting something that's not going to quite meet your needs. Wait it out a few weeks and see what happens then, and hope for the best, I guess. All right. Well, with all that said, man. Guess we're pretty much ready to... You look like you're deep in thought here.
Yeah. Is it Riley that I was just responding to?
Riley Way, yeah.
Okay, so I just want to quickly say I would never, ever, 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 ever buy a canister filter with a built-in UV sterilizer, and I've said this before.
Oh, because Riley asked Polar Aurora 4-stage.
Here's my issue with that. If you ever break that UV clarifier, the cord sleeve breaks, or that fries, it's usually all on the same cord. I haven't seen this exact one before, but... You have just turned your canister filter into a useless piece of garbage because something else on it failed. Whenever you have 2 things stuck together like that, if one component fails and it causes the other to fail, when we're talking about the backbone of your system, it's scary. It's very scary. And it's not hard to break a UV sterilizer cord sleeve. They're not super thick. So I would recommend looking at things that do not have the UV sterilizer built in. If you do want UV on your tank, it's way better to do it separately. Redundancy. I will always talk about redundancy. You don't ever want to put yourself in a position where one failure can lead to 2 failures because they're attached to each other. That's what I'm gonna say. Okay.
Legit. All right. Well, I guess now's as good a time as any to wrap it up, guys.
Yep.
As always, thank you all so much for joining us. We love having you guys here. I know he loves answering your questions. It keeps him on his toes.
It does.
Yeah, kind of he gets to go in and dust off all these old pieces of knowledge, buried in his brain. So that's really cool for him to be able to answer you guys. With that said, sorry, Riley, can you put a link? Yeah, I did. I threw one in there, but I'll throw it in again after we're all done. Thanks again, guys. The best way to support us, watching our vids. Number one, watching, liking, commenting, sharing. Again, put it on social, put it on forums, Reddit. All that stuff would be very helpful to us, and just ensure we get more viewers and can do more cool stuff.
And I'm pretty active in the comment section on our videos. So if you guys have questions based on what you just watched, or even just want to shout out to me, say hello, see what's up, I will always be on there to say hello. So.
Yeah, so again, we appreciate it. If you want to visit us on bigelspets.com if you're in the US, bigelspets.ca if you're in Canada, or if you live near one of our super centers here in Canada, definitely check them out because those places are super cool.
They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun. So again, thanks so much, guys. We're doing this every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time now.
Yeah, that's our regular time.
Because we were jumping around a lot before. We didn't really know when we were going to do it. Now, every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I believe this link is going to be the link, so just bookmark this and make sure every Wednesday you take your lunch break and check us out and ask us some Q's and we'll give you some A's.
Trying to make the middle of your week feel better.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a good thing to do on hump day, I think. So again, thank you so much, guys. Much appreciated. And I guess we'll catch you next time.
Keep on tanking.
All right. Take it easy, guys.